Hello and welcome to Advanced Organizational Development course as we start the year 2021. I hope you're healthy and well and putting all these challenges of the past year with regards to COVID-19 pandemic hopefully behind us. At the meantime, obviously be safe and take care of yourself and your health. Let us go ahead and talk about what this course is about and how you can successfully complete this course on a project that you are passionate about, on a project or case or an opportunity that you want to find out a lot more about. Good luck in the class. It is good to have you in this class as we're starting the year 2021. Hopefully, all of the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic will come to an end by the time we reach the middle of this year or toward the end of this year. But unfortunately, at the meantime, we still have to deal with some of the challenges that will continue to be around with us. So I wish you all a safe year ahead, whether you're working from home or whether you're going to work or when you're obviously continuing your education. The Advanced Organizational Development course addresses the need for planned change focused on the company's ability to compete not only today, but also in the long term. The course addresses individual, team, as well as organization-wide interventions that can raise productivity, quality, and improve competitiveness, as well as increase skill, improve morale, and to renew the commitment of employees at all levels by basically engaging employees at everything that impacts their job and all of the organization's initiatives to stay competitive. The course will incorporate both the scientific and systems perspectives in the use of behavioral science knowledge. As an introduction, let me just say that my name is Bahaudin Mujtaba, and some of my friends call me Dean for short because my first name is pronounced Bahaudin. I graduated from Edison Community College in Fort Myers. I finished Fort Myers High School. I used to live in Cape Coral, and then I went to University of Central Florida and finally got my doctorate degree from Nova Southeastern University back in the mid-1990s. I worked for Publix supermarkets for about 16 years as a corporate manager and also in human resource department, both as an internal consultant, also as a management development specialist for managers and executives in the corporation. And then obviously I've been in academia. So when I retired from the corporate arena in the year 2000, I transitioned into academia. I've been serving as assistant professor, associate professor, and full professor since then, teaching management, organizational development, organizational behavior, and human resource type courses. My philosophy is obviously to continue getting better and better in management topics. So that requires learning. Ultimately, my life philosophy is to live with a purpose, to love that purpose, to learn about my purposes, obviously on a regular basis, continuously, and to laugh often. So learning is an important philosophy for me personally, but also professionally. So every semester when I'm teaching these classes and preparing for every session, I learn something new. And more importantly, I learn from graduate students like you in the classroom because, again, you come with a lot of experience and you reflect on topics that I may not have researched that much, but you bring in obviously new, innovative, and sometimes fresh mindsets into the table. So it's a good learning opportunity for me when I'm reading your material, listening to your presentations, and looking at your research. In terms of organizational development, I would say overall, with regards to experience, I have 10 years of corporate retail management experience, 5 years of HR, internal consulting, management development, and corporate training experience, 2 years serving as an academic director for undergraduate business programs, another 2 years of being a director for the graduate business programs, another 2 years as institutional director for accreditation and assessment, and then 6 years of experience as department chair for human resource management, management department, international business department, and leadership programs. So overall, my organizational development is basically a combined 30 years of experience so far, and obviously I'm still learning. So regardless of how much experience you get, our situational variables change in the cities where we live, in the organizations where we work. So we have to constantly keep ourselves updated by learning new skills and bringing new tools, and obviously writing and researching on an ongoing basis. As organizational development consultants and managers, I know that you'll need the hindsight to know where you've been, the foresight to know where you're going, and the insight to know when you have gone a little bit too far. So we have to keep all of those elements in mind and adjust based on the situation, based on our strengths, based on our knowledge, and based on expectations of our clients. So please introduce yourself and post your biography for all of us during the first few days of the class, so we can get to know each other, and let us know about your background, your hobbies, and your experience regarding organizational development and management practices overall. The textbook that we can use for this course could come from a variety of different authors. Luckily, there are many authors who have written about this in journal articles as well as in textbooks, so you're welcome to use whichever one that you feel is more suited for your project or research areas. I recommend the Cummings and Worley textbook. So you can use either the 9th edition, the 10th edition, or the 11th edition, which is the 2018 version of Organizational Development and Change. And obviously, I've provided you the link so you can order directly from the publisher or download the previous editions from online to start the course with. And that should be sufficient for your learning in this class to complete your project successfully. For the course textbook, I recommend the Cummings and Worley textbook entitled Organizational Development and Change. So the 11th edition is now available. However, you can always use the 10th edition or the 9th edition to continue your work and do your research. So there are a variety of different textbooks that I've recommended in the course syllabus that you can use. However, the course topics and my lectures will be based on this textbook, but I think any textbook should be able to help you understand organization development a little bit more deeper and learn about intervention and change management techniques from various authors through journal articles or textbooks. So your final exam, which is comprehensive, should be based on the various topics that are discussed by everyone, but obviously I recommend this textbook. There are many different chapters, so I recommend you look at chapters 1 through 11, as well as the last chapter talking about the future directions in organizational development. So do skim through chapters 1 through 11 closely, and also review the last chapter of the course to understand where organizational development is going, at least based on the perspective of these authors. So let us talk about your course assignments. The syllabus tells you about participation points, being engaged in every session, every week, or discussion forum, every class on a regular basis. Even though this class is run as an independent study, that means you have to have the discipline to basically keep up on a proactive basis with the recommended timelines. So one of the first assignments you have to do is an article presentation. In other words, read one academic journal article and tell us about what the author or author's point of views are, or the purpose of writing this paper. What was the literature talking about? What was the methodology? What was the findings of this article? And what are some of the recommendations that this article basically has provided for us regarding organization development, intervention techniques, or literature overall, or other challenges or opportunities regarding managing change or bringing about cultural changes. So that is just one article presentation that you can do so we can learn from you. But in the meantime, hopefully you can use that article for your term project, along with many other articles that you read to develop that literature review part of your final research paper or case for this course. So your research paper or case in this class obviously is an important part of learning and doing well on the exam as well. So try to figure out at the beginning during the first week what your final research paper should be about, and then select an article for your presentation that relates to it. In other words, start with the end in mind, as Dr. Stephen Covey would say. So begin with a current or past organizational problem or opportunity for your course research project. So first of all, describe an actual problem or opportunity in the workplace. It could be past or present case study where the company had a problem or an opportunity and they went about solving that problem or taking advantage of that opportunity. So in other words, you can look at it in terms of a systems perspective, that there's input, there's the design or work in process stage, and finally there's the output stage. So look at it that way. So what happened at the beginning, what kind of input basically went into solving this problem or taking advantage of this opportunity, what happened as part of the implementation process, and finally, what was the result? So whatever concepts you've learned in your previous organizational behavior courses, in organizational theory courses, you can apply to organizational development class in this course. So select an actual problem or opportunity that exists in a current workplace or has existed in the past, and then select a relevant article based on that for your presentation in this course. Then obviously read many other articles to develop your research paper. So then you do a research presentation for us, comprehensive, and then you develop your paper and submit your paper. So it should be a publishable quality paper. The goal here is for you to be an academically prepared and practical consultant for an organization. You can do it. In terms of OD articles and literature, so here are some recommended items that you should look at during the first week or so. All of these articles are available for you in the online portion of the class. So the first one is actually a master's thesis that was completed at University of North Texas on organizational development, a comparison of individual and organizational level change. And then you have some journal articles related to the basics of OD and better understanding what it's all about. So overall, your goal should be to focus on one project from the beginning of the class until the end of the class. So your article should be related to your term project, whatever topic that is. This way, throughout the coming weeks, you think about that one problem or opportunity, you read about it, you research about it, you discover best practice about it, and then you provide an intervention or a suggestion as a comprehensive solution for this problem statement or opportunity that you have been researching, reading about. This way we can learn something from it, and you as a consultant hopefully can duplicate this in the years to come. So here's a case example, Wells Fargo, rogue employee or toxic culture. In other words, what happened with the Wells Fargo case? What went wrong? What created an organizational culture where people were basically falsifying accounts on behalf of their customers, but their customers never knew that they had 2 or 3 accounts being opened under their name. So if you're going to research something like this, your job is to basically determine what the problem was, how it got created, and how obviously it was dealt with. In other words, as a consultant, whatever was done, do you agree with it or disagree with it? And should this be done in the future as well to prevent this from happening in other organizations? Since this case is something that has been done in the past, already been dealt with, you can obviously make other recommendations that might have been even better in dealing with this problem. As part of your research, you may read many other articles. For example, Dr. Cavaco and I wrote an article about Wells Fargo's fake account scandal and its legal and ethical implications for management that was published in Advanced Management Journal. So you may have to read obviously 10, 15, 20 different articles, academic and practical articles, to get a good understanding of what the problem was, how it was created, and how to prevent this from happening in the future within this organization as well as other organizational cultures. Another example would be what we dealt with during the 2020, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's a lawsuit, for example, with regards to Publix. The family of a Publix employee by the name of Geraldo Gutierrez, a deli worker, is suing the company for negligence, claiming that he died of COVID-19 because Publix prohibited employees from wearing masks during the early weeks of the pandemic. The lawsuit contends that Geraldo wanted to wear a mask, but he was not allowed to wear a mask in March of 2020 because Publix feared that employees wearing masks would actually scare customers and might cause a panic. However, if an employee had a doctor's note, he or she could wear a mask. On March 27 to 28 of 2020, Geraldo worked along an employee who was actually showing signs of the COVID-19 illness, including coughing. When the coworker tested positive for COVID-19, Geraldo was told to go home and self-isolate. He was hospitalized on April 10 of 2020 and unfortunately died during April 28. The lawsuit claims that Publix was negligent in lagging behind its competitors in dealing with the virus. The attorney for the family declares that the company put profit over safety of their employees. Geraldo is survived by 4 of his children who are adults, and the family suing for more than $50,000 in damages. Of course, there's also a lawsuit as of now in Illinois against Walmart by a family of an employee who also died of COVID-19 during April of 2020. And obviously other employment cases are likely to follow in the years to come. As you've seen on the news during the past few months, the US Congress obviously is looking into this as well in terms of how to reduce the liability of companies. But if companies are being unsafe in jeopardizing the lives of their employees, what is the best course of action here? Shouldn't managers and corporate executives be held responsible for this? I don't know what Publix obviously did. I'm not working with them now, but Publix is a very proactive and very responsible company. So if something like this can happen at a company that is considered to be one of the best companies to work for in the United States of America over the past 2 decades, it is obviously going to happen in other corporations. Keep in mind that companies have usually good policies, but the policies are usually on the right track. However, the implementation of it by individual managers and team leaders sometimes obviously are not aligned with the corporate policy, thereby leading to suffering of many of their employees and the employees' family members as well for the decades to come. So in the case of Publix, again, I've done a lot of work with colleagues. So you can see this first article that was published in November 2020, Distinctive HR Policy and Practices to Create a Workplace Where Shopping is a Pleasure Amid the COVID-19 Pandemic. The Organizational Culture of Publix Supermarkets, Inc. It was published in the International Journal of Human Resource Studies. Obviously, that is not an organization development article, but it is dealing with COVID-19 policies. So Publix was proactive compared to many other organizations. Nonetheless, there are challenges that they are facing. Another article that focused on creating an organizational culture of delightful customer intimacy at Publix Supermarket during 2016, that was published in the International Journal of Marketing Practices with Dr. Johnson. And then another one that was published with Erica Franklin, a retailer study growth strategy. Should Publix stay national or go abroad? That was published in the Journal of Business Case Studies. So whatever you're working on in this class should be of a publishable quality. So when the class is over, obviously you can present it at a conference or submit it to a journal for publication so it can become part of your resume or curriculum vitae. Other examples that you can look at, for example, in 2012, if you remember, during President Barack Obama's time, the Secret Service members protecting President of the United States during a trip to Colombia were caught bringing prostitutes to their hotel rooms. So Secret Service work rules forbid bringing any foreign nationals to a security zone. Ultimately, the employees were terminated. Your question would be, what can you do to proactively intervene in the organization's culture to prevent such incidents from happening in the future? Not only within this agency, but also with other organizations that have similar policies. Another example would be the mass casualty case. In 2019, an employee was fired after 15 years of work at a factory in Aurora, Illinois. Due to stress and the feelings of being treated unfairly, he shot and killed 5 coworkers and wounded 5 police officers. The question here would be, what can you do to proactively intervene in the organization's culture to prevent this type of incident from happening again in the future? So the learning points or suggestions should also apply to other organizations in other managers as well. Again, in this case, I wrote an article with my colleagues entitled "The Relationship of Suicides, Guns, and Mass Shootings in the United States: An Ethical Dilemma," that was published in the Socioeconomic Challenges. So whatever you're working on, try to get the data, analyze the data, make recommendations to the extent possible for other managers and yourself in the future to prevent these problems or to take advantage of opportunities that might exist for the organization to be more sustainable, more efficient, and more effective in the industry. In terms of managing voluntary turnover, you could do employee research surveys, allow company to monitor trends over time, provide a means of empirically assessing the impact of changes in policy or personnel, allow company to compare itself with others in the same industry along these dimensions. You can allow a company to check for differences between units and benchmark practices that might be generalized across units. And you can have tools for uncovering systematic concerns that are driving retention problems. So again, if you want to determine how to manage voluntary turnover because people are leaving and that's not good for you, you need to prevent that. You need to increase your retention rate. So but it requires doing research, intervention, and obviously sustaining that intervention for long periods of time so you can gain the benefits. And sometimes it requires auditing your organizational culture to see why is it that people are leaving. So think about the culture change at Uber, their values and their personnel. Are their values helping them or hurting them? Where are they on diversity audit continuum when it comes to Uber? So in this case, if you're auditing their diversity dimension, this is one dimension. Does it make a difference in basically retention of qualified employees in the company and ultimately the bottom line profit? So you could always have a diversity continuum such as basically the organization having exclusive culture or inclusive culture or somewhere in between. And if they are too much toward exclusion, what is the consequences of that? And if they are on the inclusion side, is that really helping them retain top people in the company? If the top qualified employees are leaving, then maybe it's not a diversity issue, maybe it's some other problem. In the case of Uber, so here's a nice little case scenario for you in terms of culture change at Uber. The company basically built a $75 billion organization which operates in more than 400 cities in the US and around the globe. The company employs 1,100 corporate employees as well as millions of drivers scattered all over the world. So you know the company has been very successful. In the company's 4 core values include let builders build, always be hustling, meritocracy and toe-stepping, and principled confrontation. These values were believed to have served the company well until, of course, they did not. The downfall at Uber started with a female engineer and blogger who worked for the company named Sarah Fowler. Fowler detailed a series of sexual harassment incidents she had endured at Uber, including one she reported to HR, but was rebuffed because the perpetrator was a high performer. So this continues, obviously, what do you do? Ultimately, there was a culture that was created. So the situation got so bad that in 2017, the company's board of directors hired the former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder to conduct an examination of all that was wrong at Uber. The Holder investigation took 14 weeks, analyzing over 200 complaints that were filed with HR, many of which were never actually acted upon, as well as interviews with current and former employees and drivers. The report prompted the firing of 20 senior officials, and the founder himself stepped down as the CEO. The report listed 40 specific practices that had to be either eliminated or instituted at the company in order to promote a more ethical and inclusive climate. More pointedly, the report recommended throwing away the 4 core statements because, in Holder's opinion, the values were being used to justify misbehavior in the organization. So this intervention had to come about in order to bring about a better organizational culture that reduces lawsuits, increases employee satisfaction, increases retention of qualified people, and obviously the company will be successful in the long term. Without this type of intervention in successfully implementing it, the corporate culture will continue to deteriorate, and the company obviously will not be able to survive for too long, at least will not be very successful in the industry. So in terms of the 4 values that you saw in the little case, let builders build, always be hustling, meritocracy and 2-stepping, principled confrontation. Well, these values look fine. In this case, the Attorney General, Eric Holder, as an external consultant, recommended that they should throw out these 4 values. And they should be replaced, obviously, with something, hopefully, that is going to bring more positive changes in the organization. So Uber's new value statement was, do the right thing, period. Now, they have to live according to these values in order for it to be successful. So bringing about the change from the past to what is desired into the future requires obviously a lot of work in the middle. So if you remember from Kurt Lewin's model of bringing about change, a 3-step model of unfreeze, move, and then refreeze. Well, between unfreezing the old mindset and introducing obviously the new mindset and then refreezing the new mindset, there's a lot of work that goes in transitioning from one stage to the next. This is where the internal or external OD consultant comes in to help the organization move smoothly from one stage to the next, to where you introduce the change and hopefully people accept it. And then you obviously institutionalize the change so it stays that way for the long term. So in the case of Uber, what can you do to proactively intervene in the organization's culture to prevent such incidents from happening in the future? In other words, you describe basically the problems at the beginning, and eventually they brought in an external consultant, and then how do they actually implement this to bring about positive changes, and how is it going now? And what else would you recommend to basically make the process even better when we have to implement such drastic interventions in the future of this organization or other organizations? And finally, all of this material that you're doing obviously should help you to do well on the final exam, which is comprehensive for this course. So keep reading the assigned readings and do your assignments in a timely manner. And obviously enjoy being an internal or external consultant for an organization on one problem or opportunity that you see for that organization. Overall, keep in mind that organizational development and change management is part of life, regardless of whether we were private sector or public sector. We're always going to be dealing with changes, whether we want it or not. So you need to police, evaluate, and improve your consultancy skills every single day. Good luck.